My name is Luana Barbosa. I'm 28 years old. 3 months ago, I opened my husband's laptop looking for a recipe, and I found a folder I was never supposed to see. Inside were bank statements. Dozens of them. Transactions dating back 2 years. Wire transfers. Account numbers I didn't recognize. And a spreadsheet with names I knew. Elderly people from my neighborhood. People who trusted Raisa Barros. My sister-in-law. The real estate developer who built her empire on luxury condos and family connections. The woman who spent 6 years reminding me that nursing was a noble profession for people with limited ambition. The woman my husband, Antonio, defended every single time she made me feel small. What I found in that folder turned my stomach. Raisa had been taking money. Not from banks or investors. From retirees. From pension funds. From people who gave her their life savings because she promised them secure returns on property developments that didn't exist. I sat there staring at the screen for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. Because I realized something. Antonio knew. He had copies of everything. He was helping her hide it. That night at dinner, when Raisa made another comment about my middling career, I didn't say anything. I just smiled. Because I knew something she didn't. I knew exactly how her world was about to collapse. But let me take you back to the beginning. To show you how I ended up married to a man who valued his sister's lies more than his wife's dignity. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. I met Antonio Diaz 7 years ago at a hospital fundraiser in Sao Paulo. I was working the night shift in the ICU back then. 21 years old. Fresh out of nursing school. Still idealistic enough to believe that hard work and compassion mattered more than money. Antonio was there with his family. His father had donated to the new cardiac wing. Antonio was 23. Charming. Attentive. He asked about my work like he genuinely cared. He didn't flinch when I told him about 12-hour shifts or cleaning bedpans or holding the hand of a dying patient at 3 in the morning. We dated for a year before he proposed. His family seemed to accept me. His mother, Dona Helena, was kind. His father, Senor Diaz, was quiet but respectful. And then there was Raisa Barros. Antonio's older sister. 32 at the time. Already making a name for herself in Sao Paulo's real estate market. She had this way of looking at me like I was a stray dog Antonio had brought home. Polite enough in front of others. But when it was just us, the mask came off. The first time she said it, we were at a family dinner. Antonio had just told everyone about my promotion to the cardiac unit. I was proud. It meant better hours. More responsibility. A small raise. Raisa smiled. That's wonderful, Luana. Nursing is such a noble profession. Perfect for people who want to help others without the pressure of real career ambition. The table went quiet for half a second. Then Dona Helena changed the subject. Antonio squeezed my hand under the table. He didn't say anything. I told myself it didn't matter. That Raisa was just one of those people who needed to feel superior. That I could handle it. We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Raisa gave a speech about how lucky Antonio was to find someone so grounded, so humble, so content with a simple life. Everyone laughed. I smiled. Inside, I felt like I'd been slapped. The comments never stopped. They just got more creative. When Antonio and I bought our apartment, Raisa walked through it with this pitying expression. It's cozy, she said. Very practical for your budget. You know, if you ever want to upgrade, I could get you into one of my developments. Employee discount. When I mentioned wanting to specialize in pediatric intensive care, she nodded thoughtfully. That's admirable. Staying in nursing. Some people are just built for service work. When Antonio's company promoted him to senior analyst, Raisa threw a dinner party. She spent 20 minutes talking about his achievement. Then she turned to me. And Luana, you're still at the hospital? Same unit. Yes, I said. I love what I do. Of course you do, she said. It takes a special kind of person to be satisfied with that. Antonio never defended me. Not once. He'd change the subject, make a joke, pour more wine. Later, in the car, he'd say things like, "That's just how Raissa is. She doesn't mean anything by it." But she did mean it. Every single word. The worst part wasn't Raissa. It was watching Antonio choose her over me. Every time. Without hesitation. When I asked him to talk to her, he said I was being too sensitive. When I stopped going to family dinners, he said I was creating problems. When I finally told him that his sister made me feel worthless, he looked at me like I'd insulted his mother. Raissa built her business from nothing, he said. She's under a lot of stress. You need to understand that. And what about understanding me? I asked. He didn't have an answer for that. So I stopped bringing it up. I went to the dinners. I smiled through the comments. I let Raissa treat me like I was less than her. Because I loved Antonio. Because I thought marriage meant compromise. Because I didn't know yet that I was compromising myself into nothing. Raissa's business kept growing. Luxury condos and jardins. High rises in Villa Olympia. She was always closing deals. Always flying to meetings. Always reminding everyone how successful she was. She started a foundation. Helped low-income families find housing. Got her picture in the paper. Antonio was so proud. "See," he said. "Raissa has a good heart. She just expresses it differently." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that maybe I'd been wrong about her. That maybe she really was just stressed and misunderstood. Then I found the laptop. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I had the day off. Antonio was at work. I wanted to make his favorite dessert. Brigadeiro. The recipe was bookmarked on his laptop. I opened it. Went to his browser. That's when I saw the folder on his desktop. It was labeled RB Properties, Confidential. I shouldn't have clicked it. I know that. But something in my gut told me to look. Inside were bank statements, spreadsheets, contracts, all tied to Raissa's developments. And buried in the files were names I recognized. Elderly people from my neighborhood. People I'd seen at the market. At church. People who trusted Raissa because she was local. Because she promised them safe investments. The spreadsheets showed wire transfers. Hundreds of thousands of reais. Money going into accounts that didn't match any property development I could find. Money that should have been building apartments. Instead, it was just disappearing. I cross-referenced the dates. The developments Raissa claimed to be working on didn't exist. The addresses were vacant lots. Abandoned buildings. Projects that had been canceled years ago. She was running a scheme. Taking money from retirees. Promising them returns on real estate investments. Then using that money to fund her actual developments. The ones that made her look successful. The ones that got her name in the papers. And Antonio knew. He had copies of everything. He was helping her hide it. I sat there for an hour. Just staring at the screen. My hands were shaking. I felt sick. This was the woman who'd spent 6 years making me feel small. Making me feel like my work didn't matter. Like I was beneath her. And the whole time, she was stealing from people who had less than I did. And my husband. The man I'd married. The man I'd defended to my friends when they said he didn't stand up for me. He was protecting her. I closed the laptop. I didn't say anything to Antonio that night. I needed time to think. To figure out what to do. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let this go. Not anymore. 2 weeks later, Antonio told me we were having dinner at his parents' house. It was a celebration. His parents were renewing their vows after 35 years of marriage. The whole family would be there. I didn't want to go. But I also knew this might be my only chance. To see Raissa. To look her in the eye knowing what I knew. To decide what I was going to do about it. I wore a simple dress. Navy blue. Professional. Antonio wore a suit. On the drive over, he was talking about work. About a new project. I wasn't really listening. I was thinking about the spreadsheets. The names. The money. We arrived at 6. Dona Helena hugged me at the door. Senor Diaz shook my hand. Raissa was already there. Standing in the living room with a glass of wine. Wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She smiled when she saw me. Luana. You made it. I wasn't sure you'd come. I know how exhausting those hospital shifts can be. I'm fine, I said. Congratulations on your parents' anniversary. Thank you, she said. It's wonderful, isn't it? 35 years. Real commitment. Not everyone understands what that takes. I smiled. Didn't respond. Antonio squeezed my shoulder and went to talk to his father. Dinner was set up in the dining room. Formal. Candles. The good china. Donna Helena had made feijoada, Antonio's favorite. We sat down. Raisa was across from me. Antonio was to my right. The conversation was light at first. Talk about the vow renewal ceremony. About family memories. Señor Diaz told a story about their honeymoon. Everyone laughed. Then Raisa turned to me. Luana, how's work? Still in the cardiac unit? Yes, I said. Still there. That's dedication, she said. 6 years in the same position. Most people would want to move up by now. But I suppose nursing doesn't really have the same kind of advancement opportunities as other fields. Antonio shifted in his seat. Didn't say anything. I like what I do, I said. Of course, Raisa said. And that's what matters, right? Being content. Not everyone needs to achieve more. Some people are just happy where they are. Donna Helena cleared her throat. Raisa, tell us about your new development. The one in Piñeros. Raisa lit up. Oh, it's going beautifully. We broke ground last month. It's going to be luxury condos. 12 units. Already pre-sold 8 of them. The investors are thrilled. I looked at her. Watched her talk about her success. About her investors. About how well everything was going. And I thought about the people whose money she'd taken. The retirees who trusted her. Who believed in her. My hands were shaking under the table. I put them in my lap. Raisa kept talking. You know, it's so rewarding. Building something. Creating value. Making a real impact. I think that's what separates people who just work from people who build legacies. She looked at me when she said it. Just for a second. But I saw it. The condescension. The superiority. The absolute certainty that she was better than me. And something inside me snapped. I opened my mouth to speak. But before I could, Antonio put his hand on mine. Under the table. A warning. I looked at him. He was staring at his plate. Jaw tight. He knew what I was about to say. And he was telling me not to. I pulled my hand away. Raisa was still talking. Of course, not everyone has the vision for that kind of work. It takes a certain mindset. A willingness to take risks. To think bigger than a paycheck. Raisa, Donna Helena said quietly. That's enough. What? Raisa said. I'm just saying. There's nothing wrong with being practical. With choosing stability over ambition. Luana's made her choices. And they're perfectly valid for her. Antonio stood up. Suddenly. His chair scraped against the floor. Everyone looked at him. Luana, he said. His voice was tight. Controlled. Can I talk to you in the kitchen? I didn't move. Why? Just come with me, he said. No, I said. If you have something to say it here. His face went red. Luana. Kitchen. Now. I stood up. Slowly. Looked him in the eye. What do you want, Antonio? He glanced at Raisa. Then back at me. I want you to apologize to my sister. The room went silent. Apologize. I said. For what? For being rude, he said. For making this dinner uncomfortable. For disrespecting her in front of my family. I hadn't said a word. Not one word. And he was asking me to apologize. I haven't said anything, I said. Your attitude, he said. The way you're looking at her. The way you're acting. It's disrespectful. And I won't tolerate it. So either you apologize to Raisa right now or you leave my parents' house. I stared at him. This man I'd married. This man I'd loved. And I realized something. He was never going to choose me. Not over Raisa. Not over his family. Not ever. I looked at Raisa. She was watching me with this small smile. Waiting to see what I'd do. I picked up my purse. Stood up. And I walked over to where she was sitting. Everyone held their breath. I leaned down. Close enough that only Raisa could hear me at first. And I said, very quietly, I found the files. Her smile froze. Then I straightened up. Looked around the table. At Donna Helena. At Señor Diaz. At Antonio, who was staring at me with this panicked expression. And I spoke, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm not going to apologize," I said, "because I haven't done anything wrong. But I do have something to say about Rice's investors. The ones she's so proud of." "Luana," Antonio said. His voice was sharp. "Don't." I ignored him, kept my eyes on Raisa. "Tell them about Senora Costa, the woman from our neighborhood. The one who gave you 50,000 reis for the Piñeros development." Rice's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do," I said. "Senora Costa, 72 years old, retired teacher. She gave you her pension savings because you promised her a 20% return. You told her it was a safe investment, that the building was already under construction." The table was silent. "Luana, stop," Antonio said. He was standing now. "You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying," I said. "I saw the files. On your laptop. The spreadsheets. The bank statements. All of it." Dona Helena looked at Raisa. "What is she talking about?" Raisa stood up. "She's lying. She's making this up because she's jealous. Because she can't handle that I'm successful and she's not." "Am I?" I said. "Then explain the wire transfer from Senora Costa's account to RB Properties on March 15th. 50,000 reis. For a development at an address that doesn't exist." Raisa's mouth opened. Closed. She looked at Antonio. "There are others," I said. "Senor Almeida, 68 years old. Gave you 30,000 reis. Senora Ferreira, 75. Gave you 40,000. All of them elderly. All of them trusting you because you're local. Because you have a foundation that helps people." Senor Diaz was staring at Raisa. "Is this true?" "No," Raisa said. Her voice was shaking. "She's lying. She's trying to ruin me." "I have proof," I said. "Bank statements. Contracts. Emails. All saved on Antonio's laptop. Because he's been helping you hide it." Everyone turned to look at Antonio. His face was red. "Luana, you had no right to go through my computer. And you had no right to help your sister steal from retirees," I said. Dona Helena put her hand over her mouth. "Antonio, tell me this isn't true." He didn't answer. Just stood there, staring at me like I'd betrayed him. "The developments don't exist," I said. "The addresses are vacant lots. Abandoned buildings. Projects that were canceled years ago. Raisa takes the money. Uses it to fund her real projects. The ones that make her look successful. And the people who invested? They get nothing. Because there's nothing to invest in." Raisa was shaking. "You don't understand. It's more complicated than that. The money gets redistributed. It's not stealing. It's just creative financing." "Creative financing," I repeated. "Is that what you call taking a 72-year-old woman's life savings and using it to build luxury condos you'll sell for millions?" Senor Diaz stood up. His chair fell backward. "Raisa, is this true?" She looked at him. At her father. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. "I was going to pay them back," she said. "Once the developments sold, they would have gotten their returns. It was just temporary." "Temporary," Dona Helena said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You stole from elderly people." "I didn't steal," Raisa said. "I borrowed." "There's a difference." "Without their knowledge," I said. "Without their consent. Promising them returns on investments that don't exist. That's called fraud." Antonio grabbed my arm. Hard. "We're leaving. Now." I pulled away from him. "No. I'm not done." "Yes, you are," he said. "You've humiliated my sister. You've ruined my parents' anniversary. You've destroyed this family. And for what? Because you're bitter? Because you can't stand that Raisa is more successful than you." I looked at him. Really looked at him. And I saw it. He actually believed that. He actually thought I was the problem. "I'm bitter," I said. "Your sister is stealing from people who can't afford to lose their money. And you're helping her. And I'm the problem." "You don't understand the business world," he said. "This is how things work." Raisa was going to pay them back. She had a plan. "A plan," I said. "What plan? To keep taking money from more retirees? To keep lying? To keep pretending she's some kind of philanthropist while she's robbing people blind? Dona Helena was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. Señor Diaz was just staring at Raisa, like he didn't recognize her. "I want you out of my house," Antonio said to me. "Right now." "It's not your house," I said. "It's your parents' house. And I think they deserve to know the truth." I turned to Señor Diaz. There are at least 15 people in the files I saw. 15 elderly people who gave Raisa their savings. That's over 500,000 reis. And none of them know that their money's gone. Raisa sat down, put her face in her hands. "I was going to fix it. I just needed more time. More time to steal from more people?" I said. "Enough," Antonio shouted. "Enough. You've said enough. Get out." I picked up my purse, looked at Dona Helena. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to ruin your celebration. But I couldn't sit here and watch her lie anymore. I couldn't pretend I didn't know." Dona Helena didn't say anything, just looked at me with these sad, tired eyes. I walked to the door. Antonio followed me, grabbed my arm again when we got to the hallway. "You just destroyed my family," he said. "No," I said. "Raisa did that. And you helped her. If you walk out that door, we're done," he said. "Do you understand me? Our marriage is over." I looked at him. This man who'd chosen his sister over me for 6 years. Who'd let her belittle me. Who'd helped her commit fraud. Who was standing here threatening me for telling the truth. "Good," I said. "Because I'm done too." I walked out, got in my car, drove home. And I didn't cry. Not once. Because for the first time in 6 years, I felt like I could breathe. But I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee and my phone. I had photos of every single document I'd seen on Antonio's laptop. I'd been smart. I'd taken pictures with my phone before I even closed the files. I spent the night organizing them, making lists, crossing names off, writing down every address that didn't exist. By 6 in the morning, I had a digital file that was a roadmap to a multi-million real fraud. At 8 o'clock, I went to the police station. Not the local one. The headquarters of the civil police. The Division for Economic Crimes. I sat there for 4 hours. Waiting. Thinking about what I was doing. About how this would end. About the people who would be hurt. But then I thought about Señora Costa. I thought about the way she looked at church. Kind. Tired. Working part-time jobs in her 70s because she needed the money. And I realized that if I didn't do this, I was no better than Antonio. When the investigator finally saw me, his name was Detective Silva. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a stack of folders on his desk. He looked like he'd seen everything. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair. "What do you have for me, Señora Barbosa?" I didn't say a word. I just handed him the thumb drive. I watched him as he went through the files. His face didn't change at first. But then he stopped. He looked at a spreadsheet. Then at a bank statement. Then back at me. "Where did you get these?" he asked. "My husband's computer," I said. "He's Raisa Barbosa's brother." He nodded slowly. "You realize what this is, right?" "Fraud," I said. "Theft. Money laundering." "It's bigger than that," he said. "If these documents are real, we're looking at a systemic operation. This isn't just one person making a mistake. This is a business model." He spent 2 hours questioning me. Asking about dates, about names, about Antonio's involvement. I told him everything, every detail, every comment Raisa had made, every time Antonio had defended her. As I was leaving, he looked at me. "This isn't going to be easy, Luana. They have lawyers. They have money. They have influence. It's going to get ugly." "I'm a nurse," I told him. "I've seen ugly." The next week was a blur of phone calls and fear. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Antonio. I stayed in a small hotel near the hospital. I didn't answer his calls. I didn't answer Raisa's texts. Then, on Wednesday, it hit the news. Sao Paulo real estate developer under investigation for pension fund fraud. Raisa's face was all over the television. The local papers. The internet. People were coming forward. Not just the 15 I'd found. Dozens of them. Hundreds of retirees who had lost everything. The public outcry was immediate. The foundation she'd built was revealed to be a front. The luxury condos were seized by the state. The empire she'd spent years building collapsed in 48 hours. And then came the final confrontation. I was at the hospital, finishing a double shift, when I saw Antonio waiting in the parking lot. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled. His hair was messy. He looked like he'd been crying. "Luana," he said, stepping toward me. "Please. We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you, Antonio," I said, trying to walk past him. "She's been arrested," he shouted. "They took her this morning. In front of our parents. They took her in handcuffs." I stopped. "Good. How can you be so cold?" he asked. "She's my sister. She's family. And you did this to her. You destroyed her life. She destroyed her own life when she started stealing from people," I said. "I just told the truth." "They're coming for me too," he said, his voice breaking. "The police. They're asking questions about the computer. About the files. I'm going to lose my job. I might go to jail." I looked at him. I wanted to feel something. Pity. Anger. Anything. But all I felt was empty. "Then you should have thought about that before you helped her," I said. "Luana, please," he said, reaching for my hand. "We can fix this. I can tell them you were confused. That the files were something else. If you take back your statement, it'll all go away." I pulled my hand back. "You still don't get it, do you? You're still trying to protect the lie." "I'm trying to protect us," he said. "There is no us, Antonio," I said. "There hasn't been for a long time. You chose Raisa 6 years ago. Every day since then. You chose her lies over our marriage. You chose her money over my dignity. And now you're choosing her freedom over the truth." I looked at him one last time. The man I'd thought I'd spend my life with. "I hope the prison time gives you plenty of space to think about those choices," I said. I walked to my car. Got in. And for the first time in 2 weeks, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because the weight of it all was finally gone. The climax was over. The truth was out. And now I just had to survive the fallout. The legal process in Brazil can be slow. But when it's fraud involving hundreds of retirees, things move a little faster. Raisa Barros was charged with larceny, fraud, and money laundering. It took a year of court dates and hearings. I had to testify 3 times. Each time, I had to sit in the same room as her. She didn't look like a successful real estate developer anymore. She looked small. Gray. The luxury was gone, replaced by the reality of what she'd done. In the end, she was sentenced to 12 years in a federal prison. The judge was particularly harsh because of the age of her victims. "You didn't just steal money," he told her. "You stole the peace and security for which these people worked their entire lives." Antonio didn't go to prison. His lawyer was good. He pleaded down to being an accessory after the fact and received a 5-year suspended sentence. But he lost his career. No financial firm in Sao Paulo would touch him after the scandal hit the papers. He ended up moving back into his parents' spare room, working as a clerk in a small hardware store. Our divorce was finalized 6 months after that dinner. He tried to fight for a settlement, claimed that my actions had destroyed his earning potential. The judge laughed him out of court. I walked away with my dignity and my nursing salary. And that was enough. As for me, my life didn't just go back to normal. It got better. For 6 years, I'd lived in a shadow. I'd let Raisa and Antonio convince me that my work was middling, that I was just a service worker with no ambition. But once they were gone, I realized something. My ambition wasn't about building condos. It was about saving lives. I went back to school, specialized in pediatric intensive care. I'm a head nurse now at one of the top hospitals in the city. When I walk down the halls, people don't look at me with pity. They look at me with respect. Because they know I'm the one who stays calm when everything is falling apart. And then there's Koa. I met Ka Diaz Castro 3 years after the divorce. He's an architect. But not the kind Raisa was. He builds public libraries, community centers, spaces that actually matter. We met when I was volunteering at a health clinic he designed. I was explaining some logistical issues with the patient flow, and he actually listened. He didn't talk over me. He didn't tell me I was being too practical. He just nodded, took notes, and said, "That makes perfect sense, Luana. Let's fix it." Koa doesn't care that I'm just a nurse. In fact, he's the one who tells everyone he meets how proud he is of what I do. My wife is a hero, he tells his friends. She's the one who keeps the world spinning while we're all playing with blueprints. I still see Dona Helena and Senor Diaz occasionally. They're older now. Tired. They lost a lot of their savings trying to pay back Rice's victims. It didn't fix everything, but it helped. They don't talk about Rice so much. It's a wound that will never quite heal. But when they look at me, they don't look at a stray dog anymore. They look at a woman who did what they couldn't. They look at a woman who chose the truth. My name is Luana Barbosa. I'm a nurse. I'm a wife. And I'm a person who finally knows exactly what she's worth. Looking back, I realized that the hardest part wasn't exposing the fraud. It wasn't even the divorce. It was the 6 years I spent believing that I was small. We all have people in our lives who try to define us. People who want to put us in a box so they can feel bigger. Raisa needed me to be just a nurse so she could be a real estate mogul. Antonio needed me to be quiet so he could keep his comfortable, life-filled life. But you don't have to accept the version of yourself that other people create. You don't have to stay in the box. Standing up for yourself is terrifying. It can cost you your marriage. It can cost you your family's peace. It can change everything you thought you knew about your life. But the cost of staying silent is higher. Because when you stay silent in the face of cruelty and lies, you lose the one thing you can't ever buy back. Your soul. I lost a husband. I lost my in-laws. I lost the apartment I thought was my home. But I found myself. And let me tell you, that's a trade I'd make every single day for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own integrity? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, check out the video in the description. Until next time, take care of yourself. You're worth it.